Thanks, everyone. Can I just also remind you, if you could please switch your electronic devices to silent. And welcome along, everybody, to tonight's meeting. I'd also like to welcome those viewers at home who are watching the meeting via the live stream. If I could ask you all to please be upstanding, and Deputy Mayor Migdale, could you read out the opening prayer?
Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions, to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
And Councillor Thornton, if you could please read the acknowledgement of country.
On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Wadjuk people of the Noongar Nation on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respects for elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you. You can take your seats, everyone. Without prior approval, any recording of the meeting is prohibited. No action should be taken on any resolution of council prior to written advice from the council being received. Item 1, official opening. And ladies and gentlemen, I declare the meeting of 4th of February 2025 open at 6:31 p.m. Apologies, I have nil. 3, approve leave of absence, I have nil. 4, disclosures of interest. There were 7 disclosures from the Community and Resources meeting held on the 28th of January. They're on the screen behind me. You can see those. For council meeting tonight, I also have a disclosure for 12.18.2 for the sponsorship item. It's just an impartial interest. I have worked with and know many of the applicants for all of those grants that are submitted this evening. Councillors, are there any other disclosures? Councillor Reid?
Yes, please. 18 point, my apologies. 12.18.1, as I reside in the Stirling City Centre project and in the southern boundary.
Thank you. Any other disclosures, councillors? Not this time. Thank you. 5 petitions. Councillor Giudice, I believe you have a petition to present this evening in relation to Dianella Regional Open Space.
Yes, I do, Mr Mayor. The petition contains 36 verified signatures and that has been received by the city as follows. This park attracts a large number of dog walkers and as friends we socialise at this park. The park is they're referring to as the Dianella Regional Open Space, refurbished in 2023 to a high standard and I suspect considerable expense. Unfortunately, due to the overgrown trees, the grass has disappeared and is now just a field of mud. We truly appreciate having the enclosed dog park and will continue to use it. Can we ask you to consider the following layout, which should require the following: new turf, extensive trimming of the trees to allow the sun to feed the grass, cleaning or removal of the yellow wall, new pathways to reduce human wear and tear of the grass, new brick walls for plentiful seating, and finally a pagoda using the existing one from the next field and a sandpit for the dogs to dig in.
Thank you, councillor. Are there any unverified petitions this evening, councillors? No. Can I have a move and a second to accept that petition? Move councillor Papard, seconded councillor Ferrani. Just a show of hands will do for that one. To accept. Thank you. That's unanimous. Now let's go on to item 6, responses to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice. We have nil. And 7, public question time. We've received some questions for tonight and I'll invite you, Mary Russell, to start us off. If you'd like to stand up, and you'll just need to turn the mic on. It can then just stay on, just on the bottom right-hand corner, the silver button. Thank you. And just your name and suburb to start us off and your question, please.
It's Mary Russell. I live in Yokine. Point I'm bringing today is the dangers of the errant golf balls from the WA Golf Club. This is my second attendance at a council meeting regarding the same matter. The first time being on the 19th of November last year, and I thank the council for the opportunity to again raise the ongoing problem of the errant golf balls from the West Australian Golf Course. At that meeting in November, I did not detail any background to my concerns. Now that I'm better prepared for tonight's meeting and the problem of the errant golf balls are continuing, I'm providing the following information.
If you could just frame it as a question, though, this is question time. So I'll allow you a little bit of leeway, but you just need to have a question related to it.
I feel I need to give some background to why I back here again. I'm not here out of choice.
I understand.
As a result of last November's meeting, I had the opportunity to meet with Mayor Irwin, and he's informed me that he has met with the golf club management and they outlined to him strategies implemented to attempt to address the balls being hit out of bounds, and I fully appreciate the club and the Mayor's efforts. I understand from the Mayor he was also planning to meet with the club president. These strategies so far do not seem to be having much, if any, effect at all, and I continue, as do other people in the vicinity, to experience the hazards from the golf ball, often travelling with much force and speed. While I appreciate that the wheels may turn slowly, I think the matter needs to be expedited, as the following information will support. In the last 5 years, I personally have been hit by a golf ball, fortunately not physically hurt. However, I was shocked by the unsuspected missile and potential for serious harm if that ball had been travelling at a faster and more powerful pace, as many of them do. My dog has been hit and likewise was distressed by the impact. I've had 5 solar panels broken on 5 separate occasions since they've been installed. While the golfers' individual insurance have funded replacement, I've been out of pocket due to taking time off work to be available for assessment of the damage and the installation of replacement panels, in addition to the time and inconvenience in processing claims. The recurring access to my rooftop is cause for concern for damage. I have the dangerous task of climbing ladders.
I'm sorry, Ms Russell, but I do have to ask you to please get to question. I understand it's a concern.
I'll just mention a few more points, if I may, please. Please bear with me.
If you could please get to a question.
Passerbys have been hit by golf balls. That's been known. 2 people seriously, almost hit recently. Car windows have been smashed. Golf balls have landed in the school playground. And so the problem goes on. My friend's car was almost hit by a golf ball, and she won't visit me anymore because she knows the frequency of these events. I can't pursue my hobby of gardening without this.
Ms Russell, I'm going to have to say to you that I need a question. I'm happy to put
so my
it all on
question
public
is,
record.
Does the council of the City of Stirling consider these are reasonable conditions for its residents to be living under?
No, Ms Russell, that's why I committed to you to meet with the golf club and come up with an action plan.
Okay. And what further steps will the council take to ensure the safety of residents and walkers within the vicinity of the golf club?
I'll get Ms Hawkins to outline the process from here on that.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Ms Russell, for being in tonight. And you mentioned those short-term strategies that when we met with the General Manager in October, I think they have exhausted those. So the club is currently looking at the feasibility of fencing, as we talked about, so the sort of scope and cost of that and what that could look like. The General Manager is still completing that work, and then we'll be discussing that further with the community in terms of that's something, if it is feasible, that will happen. So I'll continue to liaise with the General Manager and provide you updates on that, but they're certainly working through that fencing option at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kieran Kelly.
Kieran Kelly, Scarborough, and welcome everybody for the new year. Look, I'd just like to reference my first question by saying that elite sports fields demand a high upkeep and a lot more water than the average suburban ground. So I reference to the minutes of December 3rd, 2024, 7.13, which is public question time, and a question by myself. And the question was regarding water allocation to the Mirrabooka Oval that is now being used by the Perth Glory. The answer I was provided by the Director of Community Development advised that the Perth Glory has applied for their own separate licence through the Department of Water and Environment. So, Mr Mayor, with regard to the watering of the Perth Glory Oval, or the Mirrabooka public space, my understanding that the groundwater resource of the following aquifers, the Perth Superficial Swan, the Perth Leederville and the Perth Yarragadee North, applicable to the Mirrabooka Sports Complex, are fully allocated. There is no water available to be allocated. Accordingly, it may be that the Perth Glory will be compelled to execute a trade of water from an existing water licence holder. Can the Mayor guarantee that the City of Stirling will not relinquish any volume of its own groundwater allocation to the Perth Glory? can the Mayor guarantee that the use of groundwater by the Perth Glory at the Merribooka complex will not jeopardise water resources and supply to other, can the Mayor guarantee that the City of Stirling will not relinquish any volume of its own groundwater allocation to Perth Glory? And can the Mayor guarantee that the use of the groundwater by the Perth Glory won't have any adverse effect against other community ovals?
I can guarantee it won't have any adverse effect against any other council community ovals. I don't understand enough about the first point in terms of what's currently used and what would be used and how the allocation works, but I'm certainly happy to investigate and get back to you in writing and hopefully be able to provide you that guarantee.
Thank you for that. Now, my second question, with the council now in control after the normalisation process of the Scarborough redevelopment area, can the council please provide a written update list of development approvals within this area and the current status of those development approvals? And will the council keep the Scarborough residents and other ratepayers informed to any new development approvals that are sought within the Scarborough redevelopment area?
Yeah, yes, certainly, and a good question, and happy to provide that in writing to you, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. And my third question, with recent expenditures on various projects within the City of Stirling, such as $217,000 on a dog enclosure, $195,000 on a staircase to get to the dog enclosure, $500,000 on a study to find out if there's a need for a boardwalk through the Trigg sand dunes, and who knows how much on a feasibility study on a trackless tram, can the Mayor inform myself and the ratepayers of the city what due diligence is applied to ensure that the purchases of goods and services on behalf of the ratepayers is value for money? And I do note that 12.1, you have got something on procurement tonight.
Thank you.
Which I didn't know.
And look, you know, the simple answer is it's legislated, the process to go through any of those, and it is all a matter for public record, and it's up to the public to decide if it's value for money.
Right. I'm sure we will. Thank you.
I'm sure you will, Mr. Kelly. Roland Hadley.
Good evening all, Roland Hadley, Woodlands. We seek the cost of the reopening of the Hammersley Golf Club, which occurred a couple of weeks ago. We want to see full financial details of food, drink, photography, hire of any equipment, plaques, etc., and which budget these costs have been allocated to. Can this be done?
Yes, it can, Mr. Hadley. We'll provide you that in writing.
Thank you. Actually, many wonder who qualified for an invitation to this event, as the press recorded that AFL players, influencers and creators attended. Quite interesting.
That wasn't our event, Mr. Hadley.
Thank you. Question 2. Mayor Irwin, you informed ratepayers that the cost of the 652-page trackless tram report, which took experts 13 months to complete, would be paid for by ratepayers. Can you now please advise ratepayers of the amount involved and which budget this has been allocated to?
Thank you. We'll respond to you in writing, Mr. Hadley.
Thank you. Question 3. Slightly longer, this one, so I won't keep it too long.
Sorry?
The track... Sorry, somebody speaking? Can I... All right.
Keep going, Mr. Hadley.
Yeah. The trackless tram report took some 13 months to complete and consisted of 652 pages of detailed, technical and stringent engineering tests. Of the trams assessed by the engineering consultants, technicians and experts, the Chinese tram passed every test known to man, and this was the basis for the business case submitted to the federal and state government departments. However, at the last council meeting, Mayor Mark Irwin stated that the tram may not be Chinese-made. Well, Mayor Irwin, what have you actually achieved in the last 13 months, apart from bombarding taxpayers, ratepayers with TV, radio, press releases, mayor's messages, and costs to ratepayers thousands of dollars? We would like to see copies of the submission you sent to the federal government on behalf of the Australian taxpayers, and could you also include all financial details of expenditure?
Yes, thank you for that. And look, the short answer is as you well know, as an advocate for mid-tier transit down Scarborough Beach Road for a long time, Mr Hadley, that it was about showing other options for mid-tier transit into the future and showing what the technology does. You are correct. I said that the future tram that runs down the road, or the future light rail, as it may be, that runs down the road, may not be Chinese made, but it's a technology that's currently available that was optioned to be tested.
Thank you. But what about the fact that the federal state government will not provide any funding towards this venture?
You'd have to ask the state government that, Mr Hadley, but happy to provide you the other information in writing.
Thank you.
Jennifer Hawkes. Sarah, yes. Thank you. Just your name and suburb to start.
Jennifer Hawkes, Corrine. Mr Mayor, councillors, other people. I was just going to tell you first off that I got my information from this. It's the Local Government Biodiversity Planning Guidelines for the Perth Metropolitan Region, and from the city's own book called Green Plan 2.
Ms Hawkes, sorry to interrupt. Before you continue, can I just get you to pull your microphone down a little bit? Thank you.
And I was wondering how many councillors are aware of the committee that went into the planning of Green Plan 2, which was set up by the EPA and included 3 reps from the EPA, 2 from the Water Authority, 2 coastal scientists, a scientist from one of the universities, 2 City of Stirling representatives, one being Daniel Rajar of the City of Stirling at that time, David Pike, Phyllis Robertson, Otto Mueller and myself, and that this council finalised the Green Plan 2, and it states it came up, the committee finalised this, and is council aware of 5.5 coastal dune systems and the coastal management strategy for 1984 and review of the coastal report 1996 for details on coastal dune conservation at the following locations: Brighton Beach, Scarborough Beach, South Trigg Beach, Benyons Beach, Mettams Pool, Hammersley Pool, North Beach and Waterman's Beach. Regarding these areas, the key strategy elements were protection from the impacts of coastal recreation in the near vicinity and public education and awareness of the importance of dune conservation. While the love of, going on to question 3, the local government, biodiversity planning edition 1 states in 5.2 that the threshold targets exist for the representation of rarity ecological criteria and declared red flora or priority fauna as being, it comes under the heading of being essential. Which brings me to the coastal boardwalk, which would, my main question is, all these were put together by very, very erudite people, not including myself, but why is council, all this has been passed by council, and why are they flying against, in the face of this, to develop that boardwalk in that ecological area?
Thank you for that question. Look, I'd have to see all those documents to be able to answer that first part about are all council aware, and happy to receive those links. And I know you know what the email addresses are, so happy to receive those links to all those documents. Look, council
you should have them all at the city.
I'm sure we do, but I'm just saying the ones that you've read, when you've read out the first one, I can't answer whether all councillors are aware of it. I just wanted to make that clear, but happy to take the links. Look, that will go through a process. I think you're aware where it's currently at. Council will then go out to public consultation, and it won't be council that decides the, I guess, ecological concerns or those things. It will go to much higher powers than this council to determine if it was going to be detrimental to the dune systems. Brett Russell. And just while you're coming up, Mr. Russell, I just ruled to extend question time as it's been in progress for 15 minutes. Thank you. Just your name and suburb to start, please.
Brett Russell from Trigg. It is disturbing that the Kotira report has only done a desktop survey of fauna in the South Trigg Beach Class A Reserve and concluded that the known species of fauna, including migratory birds, are not anticipated to rely on the habitat within the dune system for survival. This is contrary to the research carried out by BirdLife WA, which identified 9 significant bird species in the reserve and the importance of the reserve as a corridor for migratory species along the coast, north and south. What action will the city take to ensure the protection of the coastal reserve as a wildlife habitat?
Thank you for that question. And again, it is a desktop research. Once the next stages are, which would, I presume, as we've predicted, would be detailed drawings of what the boardwalk could look like, and get that reassessed, and also community consultation, it will go to higher powers to get those environmental checks done.
Okay, question 2. The Department of Parks and Wildlife Services interim recovery plan for the Rottnest Island Pine woodlands and the Swan Coastal Plain has identified the threatened ecological community as being a particularly groundwater dependent ecosystem. The Kotira report states that there is the potential for a boardwalk to change the nature of drainage patterns on the site and impact the hydrology of the site, but goes on to say this does not trigger a buffer requirement. How does the city explain this inconsistency?
I'd have to take that one on notice, so I wouldn't be able to answer that for you, Mr. Russell, but take it on notice and respond to you in writing.
Okay. Question 3. How does the city intend to stop the boardwalk enabling people and animals using it to access what is currently fenced and protected Rendment Quindalup dunes between Scarborough and Trigg Beach?
Thank you. And that is something I can answer. The assumption would be that any planned boardwalk would have significant fencing on it, especially if it was elevated, and probably give greater protection from people walking off the current dunes, current pathways into the dune system. So I wouldn't anticipate that would be an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Jean Cooper. Thank you. Just your
Jean
name.
Cooper from Dinella.
Thank you.
Just a trivial question after listening to all of those. There's some repairs were done, or a new water tap was put into the large dog park at the Dinella Recreation Centre. And when they put that in, obviously all the water was cut off so that they could install that. They've reconnected the water, but what they've done when they've reconnected is created a problem in the small dog park water fountain, in that when you try to get water out, it just sprays everywhere and not in the dog bowl. Well, some eventually gets there. I did speak to one of the council or Stirling people that were at the park doing some work up the front of the Dinella Recreation Centre to say, can somebody please turn the pressure of the water down? And I checked again this morning, and I asked on the 30th of January, and I checked again this morning, and it's still doing the same thing. Just somebody turn the pressure down, please.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. It's probably more complicated, but we'll certainly take that on board and get someone. The director is here nodding his head. He'll have someone out there tomorrow. I will note on that, it is amazing, such a simple piece of infrastructure, those the dog waterers as well as the water fountains right throughout, and the showers around the place, how much maintenance is on there, and every time they get replaced, there's people who just take them straight off and take them home. It is a constant, so yeah, don't be afraid to let us know, because the team's always out there having to fix those. Lisa Thompson, please.
Good evening, everyone, Mr Mayor.
Evening.
Mr Mayor.
Sorry, and just your name and suburb.
Oh, sorry. I thought you might know it by now.
That's just for the record.
I reckon it's been about 7 months. On your city's website, it states the city is committed to preserving coastal environments through comprehensive management. Mr Mayor, do you stand by this statement, and what do you consider as comprehensive management?
Thanks for the question. Yes, I do stand by it. Management is about managing the care and control of any of our our Class A bushlands, our conservation areas, many of the parklands and bush that the city has. Managing is a fine balance between ensuring, obviously, that the ecology and the flora and fauna are maintained and protected, but also ensuring that the amenity for the local area and people can interact with those areas.
Thank you. Then can you please explain why your council failed to lodge a basic environmental application with DEWA for a clearing permit for a lookout platform built on sensitive dunes outside the Surfing WA building?
I'll give you the simple one and then I'll ask Mr Murphy for the complicated one. The intent of that wasn't to actually clear any dune system. It really was to manage the pathways and manage the interactions between the informal pathways that are being used by Surfing WA as a lookout through those dune systems. Any of the material that was displaced was replanted and there are a lot more plantings that went along. But I'll get Mr Murphy to explain the more complicated.
Yeah, through your mayor. Just to continue that vein, that's correct. The interpretation the city had is that we didn't require a permit because we were translocating some parts of the dune, and that's why we didn't apply. We've now been in contact with the department who've indicated that they believe we should have, so in the future we'll make sure we do.
So you guys have had a lot of experience in this for years. I just can't, so you're going to not get a permit, it's required by DEWA, and then you want to go and build a $20 million boardwalk through an environmental, beautiful place that I respect that you might put it down to safety and people intervening and going that, but you can't even get it right for a small area. How are you? And at the moment, we are struggling with that Katira report. It doesn't use the Trigg Bushland Management Plan, which has been around since 2018 in the report. It is very scary that you guys are going ahead with that without addressing some major flaws in that, and I think we really need to take some big steps and look at that quite closely. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms Thompson. Mark Masiello.
It's Mike Masiello, not Mark. Where did you get Mark from?
Sorry, the name written in front of me. Sorry.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Apologies. You've had a bad run with me.
No problems. Good evening, Mayor, Councillors, Executive Team. My name is Mike Masiello from Trigg. I'll start with some introductory information to give context to my questions. The Kotera report states coastal erosion is a significant risk and will be a key determinant in the location and design of the proposed coastal boardwalk. The report recommends the boardwalk be built east of the 2070 erosion hazard line. The report also identifies the state-protected TEC patch. The TEC patch edge sits approximately 15 metres from the 2070 erosion hazard line, leaving a small gap between the TEC and the 2070 erosion line, as evidenced in Appendix 7 in the Kotera report. By law, the edge of the TEC patch requires a protective vegetated buffer zone, which can only be set or varied by DBCA and the EPA. We surveyed multiple environmental experts, and industry standard is a minimum 50-metre buffer required by DBCA for a TEC patch, which is 50 metres from the edge, which also is what is in the Trigg Bushland Management Plan 2018 version. However, Kotera states, and I quote, "It is recommended that where possible, the boardwalk design should be set back approximately 15 metres from the TEC patch." Why a mere 15 metres, you ask? Well, when you look at the figure 7, it's quite obvious. 15 metres is the maximum the TEC buffer can be before pushing, coming into contact with the 2070 erosion line. So if it's any more than 15 metres, essentially we're now building the boardwalk west of the 2070 erosion hazard line, making the proposal unviable. So my questions. The report states, as quoted, the buffer to the TEC should be reassessed when the exact extent of the TEC is known. Why has Kotera completely ignored and failed to reference the Trigg Bushland Management Plan, Addendum 2018, which contains detailed information on the extent of the TEC, including the 50-metre buffer recommendation. Instead, it's chosen to reference the outdated 2014 version that did not include the TEC, therefore allowing the authors to suggest their own unsubstantiated buffer.
Thank you. And look, all I can assure you is that before anything goes further or towards being built, there would be further environmental checks and on-site checks to determine exactly where the TEC is. And you're correct, there would have to be a buffer if it was built or if it was planned to be built into the future.
So I'm questioning the buffer size, and I have already directed this question to Ms Woolsencroft and Mr Roddick. However, they didn't reply to that specific rationale, and that's what I'm after, the rationale behind that 15 metres, because that's what's obviously advanced it. If it was set at 50, which is what all the existing evidence states, and the Trigg Bush Management Plan, then the project finishes.
Right, we can answer, so we'll find that answer for you and respond in writing with that.
Thank you. The 15-metre recommended buffer is far below the widely accepted 50-metre buffer that will be required to gain approvals by DBCA, EPA, DWER, further down the track. Given the narrowness of the reserve and the levels of protection that exist, the significance of the TEC buffer has on viability of the project, please explain why the City has chosen not to challenge this fatal flaw in the COTERA report and instead has chosen to blindly accept this inadequate and arbitrary 15-metre buffer to advance the proposal.
Thank you, and happy to respond to you in writing in the vein of the first one, Mr.
Yeah, so specifically to that question.
Yes.
Yep. Great. Okay, the fact that is the City or COTERA can't dictate the TEC buffer, and this buffer will be set and enforced by DBCA and EPA at a minimum of 50 metres from the TEC. Making up an arbitrary 15-metre buffer merely kicks the can down the road. Why is the City continuing to waste ratepayers' money on the feasibility assessment, designs, marketing, further highly detailed environmental assessments when the TEC buffer constraint blatantly renders this project unviable?
Thank you for that. And again, we'll respond to you in writing. And certainly the environmental considerations will take all of that into account, as will the recommendations for the 2070 line. I mean, any asset along the coastline, it's up to the local government to make those decisions about the cost and the benefit over a period of time.
But not challenging what's been written in that report, which isn't accurate, it's a concern because the money continues to be spent and fund this proposal, but we know that it's going to get stopped later. You know that it's going to get stopped later. It's just kind of sugar, a little sugar hit really. But anyway, I look forward to detailed response and justification for that in writing.
Appreciate your question.
Thank you.
Robin Murphy.
Good evening, Mr Mayor and councillors. My name's Robin Murphy. I live in Karrinyup. I'm the convener of the Friends of Trigg Beach. Why has the council, it's actually the City, refused me access to 7 out of 15 documents deemed to be relevant under Freedom of Information about the process without notice or ratepayers' knowledge, led to the approval of the allocation of $500,000 for a coastal boardwalk feasibility study. That's 7 out of 15 documents that are deemed to be relevant were refused. Why is this information being withheld by the City from the rate-paying public?
Thank you for that question, Ms Murphy. Look, I'm not aware of what those documents are.
Neither am I, because they've been withheld.
I'm not sure how to answer. If you don't know what the documents are and I don't, then how do we know they've been withheld?
Well, the City has told me they've been withheld. They've refused me access to 17 out of 15 documents deemed to be relevant under Freedom of Information.
Okay, so I'm happy to take that on notice, and I'll find out what you're talking about, and we'll respond to you in writing with why, if there are documents, why they have been withheld.
There must be an officer here today who can give this answer.
Ms Woolsencroft, are you aware of the documents that have been refused?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thanks for the question, Ms Murphy. Look, I'm only aware of the FOI process, so there's certain legislation that applies to the Freedom of Information Act, And if a document is deemed private and confidential, then it may be that they can't provide you with that document.
But we will find out what the reasons are and give you the reasons for each one. Just
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further to that, isn't this refusal of access to 7 relevant documents? These have been identified by the city, not by me, because I don't know what they are. So isn't this refusal of access to 7 relevant documents inconsistent with the city's claims of transparency in its operations and accountability to the ratepayers, for which it, ironically, received a gold award in the 2024 Australasian Reporting Awards?
Thank you for that question. And again, I'm still not aware of what the documents are, so it's hard for me to answer, but we will respond to you in writing.
Our group, the Friends of Trigg Beach, offered to provide a briefing to the council workshop that was held in March last year on the proposal for a coastal boardwalk through the South Trigg Beach Class A Reserve. We were refused attendance for the reason that the workshop was for councillors only. And we were also told that it was not a decision-making forum, as it and other councillor workshops obviously were decision-making forums. My question is, has any individual or representative of an organisation from outside the council or the city attended any of the council workshops that discussed the proposal for a coastal boardwalk prior to the allocation of $500,000 for a feasibility study adopted in the corporate business plan in June 2024?
No community groups have been involved in
Individuals
any of those workshops.
or representatives of any organisation.
Not that I'm aware
can
of.
actually say community groups.
No, I'm only saying that because there are sometimes... So a workshop it's a private council workshop, often with confidential information, and often there are independent consultants who give a briefing on specifics at certain workshops. In terms of a boardwalk, if you're talking about another community individual or a community group,
No, I'm not
I don't believe
actually.
there was.
I'm referring to individuals or representatives of organisations from outside the council or the city, because I was specifically told we couldn't attend, we couldn't brief the council workshops. And I'm not talking about one workshop here. There obviously, well, I know there were several workshops because...
I appreciate it. So my answer is no.
The FOI, you're saying there were no representatives from other organisations or individuals attending any of those workshops where the coastal boardwalk feasibility study was
There's no
discussed.
secret meetings with other people about a boardwalk, Ms Murphy.
No, I'm not talking about secret meetings. I'm talking about councillor workshops.
Thank you.
Are they secret meetings? Oh, they are actually, because I think they are some of the documents I've been refused. So can I have that in writing, please?
Yes, you will.
There were no representatives from other organisations or individuals at any of those
I think it's been answered, Ms Murphy.
I beg your pardon?
I think it's been answered, yes. We'll provide it in writing.
Thank you. I look forward to that.
You're welcome. Harley Diamond.
Harley Diamond, Karrinyup. The Trigg Bushland Management Plan was last reviewed and updated in 2018 to include an addendum with management recommendations for the threatened ecological community of Rottnest Island pine, which occurs in sections 1 and 6 of the bushland. The Trigg Bushland is recognised for its importance by its listing on the State Heritage Register for its landscape values. The South Trigg Beach Reserve is Sector 6 of the Trigg Bushland. Can the City advise when the Trigg Bushland Management Plan will next be reviewed and updated?
Thank you. I can respond to you in writing on that one.
Okay, thank you. The environmental assessment of the proposed coastal boardwalk prepared by Kotira Environment fails to reference the 2018 version of the Trigg Bushland Management Plan or the City's 2023 Coastal Hazard Risk Management and Adaptation Plan, although both documents were apparently provided to them by the City. As a result, there are a number of important omissions in the report. Has the City asked Kotira to revise their report to include the most up-to-date information contained in both reports? If not, what steps is the city taking to ensure that its coastal boardwalk planning is up-to-date, accurate and complies with existing environmental management policies?
Thank you. Ms Waldencroft.
Through you, Mr Mayor. And thank you for the question, Mr Diamond. Coterra, I can confirm, Coterra were provided with the up-to-date reports in both cases. What they have done is reference the technical reports that were included in those specific reports, and they've put them in their references. So while they haven't referenced the specific report, they've referenced the technical attachments of those reports that are included in those plans. So I've provided those links to those that are on our website. So that's where the dates differ, because those technical reports were not not updated in for the final plan. So Coterra have referenced the technical reports while they've been provided with the entire plan.
Okay. Is the city aware of State Coastal Planning Policy 2020 guidelines, which state that the managing authority of coastal reserves must ensure protection by utilising existing tracks or cleared areas and avoid clearing existing vegetation? How can the city justify any further action on a coastal boardwalk when it would obviously require clearing existing vegetation and disturbing intact remnant Quintalup coastal dunes between Scarborough and Trigg Beach?
Thank you. And they are all considerations that council will have in any future decision making on this.
Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. That's all I've got on my list. I did notice a couple of people came in late. Is there anyone we've missed for question time? If not, thank you everyone for your questions. We'll now move on to item 8, which is applications for leave of absence. And we probably have a couple coming up tonight. So I'll go to you, Councillor Dudak, to start with.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to apply for a leave of absence from tomorrow, the 5th of February, until the 9th of March.
Inclusive, 5th of February to the 9th of March. Thank you. And Councillor Thornton, I've got next.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I too would like to apply for a leave of absence from the 5th of February to the 9th of March inclusive.
Thank you. Councillor Papard. Is there an... Okay. Is that Councillor Ree?
May I have a leave of absence from the 5th of February to the 9th of March, please?
Thank you. And are there any other requests this evening? If not, can I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the requested leave? I'll take that as a move. Councillor Papard, seconded Councillor Perkov. And just a show of hands to accept those leave of absences. That is unanimous. Can I take this opportunity, completely non-political, but wish you all the very best in the upcoming state elections. Quite obvious why all those leaves are there. Seriously, you've all been fantastic council representatives. We wish you all the best in your campaigns for your state election, whatever those positions or parties or values are. Item 9, confirmation of... can I just note that the Deputy Mayor was out of the room for that vote, if we've got that. Item 9, confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I have a move and a seconder to accept the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held way back on the 3rd of December? Thank you. Move Councillor Hatton, seconded Councillor Proud, and just show of hands to accept those minutes. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 10, announcements by the presiding member. She's out of the room, but I just wanted to make a quick one, and that was just to acknowledge and thank the Deputy for stepping in. I was away last week, a very exciting time for a week, watching my youngest son compete in the South Australian Dinghy Derby. If you want to Google something a bit crazy, Google Renmark Dinghy Derby. I don't know what makes people think that that's a good idea to do that in a dinghy. But anyway, fantastic opportunity. And I just want to thank the Deputy Mayor for stepping in and also opening the OAC building last week in my absence. Item 11, unresolved business from previous meetings. I have nil. Now to reports and recommendations of committee. Item 12, we'll deal with the items from the Committee and Resources Committee meeting held on the 28th of January 2025. There are no items specifically required to be pulled out. There are, however, some alt recs for 12.1F3, the procurement policy, and 12.182, the event sponsorship. Does anyone wish to pull any items out, including those ones? Councillor Ferrante.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull out 8.1, please.
12.1, 8.1. There's
My apologies, TE1.
Thank you. Are there any others that need to be put, Councillor Ree?
Yes, please. May I pull out 12.1 EPA1 and 12.1 F1, please?
Sorry, 12.1.
EPA1 on page 38.
FPA, sorry.
FPA, sorry.
There's a lot of letters on some of these. I'm getting... Yeah.
12.1
The asset management policy.
on page 48, and I believe 12.1 F3 is being pulled out anyway.
Well, I don't know if it is. So you've pulled it out now.
Okay.
And I believe 12.1, 8.2, someone... Was that to be pulled out? Needs to be pulled
if it's
out.
got a... Oh, don't know, whatever.
That was regarding the alt rec, yes. Councillor Dudek?
Yeah, just on 12.1 F3, no one's pulled that out, have they?
Yes.
They have?
Yeah. That's right. Okay, we're ready to go? Yeah, that's been pulled out. Yep. Okay, councillors, let's start with 12.1 FPA1, the asset management policy on page 38. And I'll go to you, Councillor Perkoff, as chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as per the committee on page 38 as written.
Thank you. And can I have a seconder for that motion? Is there anyone? Thank you. Councillor Kristovich. And is there anyone opposed? Councillor Ree, you're opposed to it? Sorry, I'm not. Can you just put your mic on?
I'm happy, I will oppose it anyway, but I'm happy just to ask a question.
Okay,
I
if
will
it's
vote
just a
against
question,
it.
you don't want to debate it, unless there is anyone else opposed. I'm happy as long as it's just a question. Yep.
My point is that this is the asset management policy, and yet one of the things about asset...
That's not a question.
One,
No, I'm sorry, but that's not a
5
question.
seconds, if you
Okay.
don't mind. Is that one of the things about asset management is maintenance of the buildings. Every time we put up to get more maintenance of the buildings, it doesn't come out in the budget. It just does, it's nowhere. We've got buildings that are 60-year-old, and yet we're not spending money on maintaining the buildings. I would have thought that the whole point of having this asset management policy was to actually look at the maintenance of the buildings and not wait till they fall down or wait till asbestos eats them away. So it's very concerning that this is not addressing the things that we keep raising and what the community keeps raising. So I can't support it because the maintenance is still not in this policy.
Thank you. Noted. Shall we get some officer comment from Miss Hawkins, who's jumping in first?
okay.
Mr. Murphy.
Mr. Murphy. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, Councillor Ree, I understand your point. If you, throughout the asset management policy, it talks about spending or prioritising renewal. That's exactly what you're talking about. So the policy seeks to focus on renewal rather than new. So looking after existing buildings, rather, for example, or roads, rather than building new. So the principle that you're talking about is absolutely fundamental to this policy.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, it might be fundamental, but in black and white, in reality, there's nothing being done. I've been trying to push for lots of things happening with our buildings, especially our bowling clubs. Yep. This is just paper. It's not happening in reality.
Thank you. No, I understand. Understand your point. I think the point of this is the asset management policy is just black and white. It's just paper describing what needs to happen. But your points have been taken on notice, and I know Mr. Murphy's already planning with this year's budget cycle. There is a significant change in the proportion of asset maintenance over new, just to counteract that. There is no one opposed, so I will put that to the vote. Thank you, and that motion is carried, noting that Councillor Ree has voted against it. 12.1 F1 has been pulled out as well. I'll go to you, Councillor Perkoff, as Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the committee recommendation as written on page 48, please.
Thank you. And do I have a second for that? Councillor Kristovich has got his hand up again. Councillor Ree, have you got a question on that one, or are you opposed?
Question, please. That'll make my mind up whether I oppose it. On page 114, the super payments, just a question. With the superannuation payments, is this addressing an issue that was raised a couple of years ago with staff and getting correct superannuation payments? Is this up to date? There's my question. Is it up to date that everyone is getting paid the correct super throughout the city, whether they're working part-time, casual, full-time or a councillor?
Yes. I am 100% certain that's a yes.
That's fine. On page 41, it actually is medical expenses. Is that Chopper from the Pony Club in Herdsman flying people out? What are we doing with medical expenses?
That would work. Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, Councillor, is that the Perth Medical Volunteers invoice? I'm actually not sure what that one is. Let me check it and I'll come back to you.
Thank you. And my last one is page 10, legal aid. We paid what an enormous amount of legal to lawyers. We're actually paying legal aid as well now. That's good to share our money around to lawyers.
Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mayor.
Nala Jukin?
Yes.
No. But it is just cheque payments, that's why it's...
But why is it written up as legal aid?
Because it'd be legal aid for the Nala Jukin Centre, because it's about domestic violence.
Yes. But shouldn't that be written up better in the accounts that way?
We'll take that on board.
Because I think this is the whole point. People read this and this is our black and white. We should be a little bit more accountable of what we're saying with our other people's money. Thank you.
Thank you. There is no one opposed to this, so I'll put that to the vote. That is unanimous. Thank you. Councillors, we have item 12.1 F3, the procurement policy, has been pulled out as there is an alt rec, as you would have received. Councillor Perkoff, as Chair of the Committee.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. 12.1 F3, there is an alternate rec. It's on our paperwork and it's up on the board also that the Council adopts the updated procurement policy as shown in attachment 3, noting the following amendment. The words determined in the value for money assessment be replaced with the words who demonstrate capability and provide value for money in the last paragraph of section 11.1 on page 7 of the procurement policy.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councillor Giudice. Is there anyone opposed to this one? Councillor Ree. You're opposed? Yes. Councillor Perkoff.
Nothing to add at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Giudice.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, there's a number of items, I suppose, that I, at the committee meeting last week, discussed on the procurement policy, and I appreciate the fact that the policy is mainly just to amend the buy local, which I'm very much supportive of, and I've also pointed out, I suppose, a number of other areas that I think need a bit more rigour, one of which was relating to this part of the procurement policy. I'm, I suppose, suitably informed that there's going to be some future reviews of this policy, given some work that the accounts and the procurement teams are doing, and I think this amendment is just a interim arrangement at this moment, and I think it's, I suppose, appropriate when it comes to the panel that if we are going to select another panel member, if they were to fall away from the panel, that we need to have some form of control for our officers to follow, and who demonstrates capability and provide value for money is, I suppose, at this stage, an adequate response to what is absent in that section of the procurement policy at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Ree, you're opposed.
Yes, thank you. Having brought this policy in to start with to make sure that we have support for our Stirling businesses, before I go on, I'd just like to inquire, I do believe it's still correct that we're still buying our meat from Gosnells?
Good question. Have we got the meat buyer in the room? Is a meat buyer in the room? I'm sorry, Councillor Ree, we haven't got that information.
didn't see it in this one, but it's quite often there. I'm
There is
still
every chance. We're not a gated local government. There would be plenty of our supplies that come from outside the borders of the City of Stirling.
Well, I do believe we actually have very good butchers in Innaloo, etc., that do have really good meat that we don't need to go south of the river to find. But I'm concerned that when we've got here that on page 68, we say the value of purchases has averaged $20 million per year, increasing to a high of 26 million. So that means $6 million for the locals, which I think is a very good record when we're only doing 5%. And to me, that shows the system is working. However, when we look at page 69, the policy has additionally burdened on suppliers responding to tenders with no real benefit. We don't want them to benefit that are outside the city. It's the people inside the city we're trying to benefit, and we obviously are benefiting because we are up $6 million. I would have thought that would have been a logical thing. And then it also says in here, updating the requirements for procurement under 250,000 provide more support for Stirling businesses. Well, I don't see that there's a problem with that, although I don't know why you would do that, because if the system is working, which we've already admitted it's working, why would we change it? Also, that deleting the local business category goes against the whole point of having the procurement policy to support local businesses. So I don't understand how we're having a policy to support local businesses and we delete the category saying local businesses. And removing 5% local contact weight for tenders is something that I fought for ages to get in. And it is proving that we've got $6 million more. So why would we then get out the whole point of having procurement is to look after our own. Look after our own businesses, look after our own area, look after Western Australia. That is the whole point. I don't understand why we would make these changes, which are so much against the original motion that I put up that says about procurement. So you actually would have to, I believe, but I may be wrong, Mr. Jackson might have another view, that you would have to revoke that motion in order to change these things, because that is what the intent of that policy was. That's why it says it's 5%. So saying this is what we're going to cut out is actually going against what we put to start with, which shows it's working. So I don't, and I listened to it, the debate, but I just don't understand how we're not going any forward.
I'll try to help out. Honest, I'll be the first to admit, Councillor Ree, you have been a massive advocate for the city giving priority to local businesses. You have always advocated for that. Your motion, which probably instigated the original policy change and the way the procurement was done through the actual tender process with the weighting, has been in operation now for a while. There was a fairly detailed workshop that covered off on all this, and exactly what you're saying happened. There has been an increase in buying local or buying Stirling business, but it hasn't come from having that 5% weighting in the tender process, and it hasn't come from having those definitions. What's actually happening is the opposite. So the intent of officers always is to give, to obviously get value for money, but also to try to support local businesses where possible. But there's plenty of large contracts where that's not possible. But what you'll find through tender processes is businesses that are well outside of, so maybe multinational butchers, for example, will use a City of Stirling address, and they do it with every council and those sort of things. What's happening is multinational companies and companies that are using loopholes in the processes to show that they employ people within the City of Stirling, but they might be based in Melbourne or those. They're actually not local businesses. So that was explained. A lot of that went through in the workshop and explained all that. So it's not going at all against your motion. In fact, the intent of your motion is strengthened, and that's the whole point. Is it was about removing some of the stuff that's weakening it by giving loopholes into it, but the intent of the motion is still there, and it's proven in that value that you said in terms of the buy local, and the intent would be that that would continue to increase, and the officers have committed to reporting that back. I hope that helps, but there's certainly no intent to unwind any of that.
Your comments made with regard to what was happening with people based here and they were Sydney, that was discussed and aerated when I put my motion up to start with. So that's nothing new. We knew there were going to be loopholes, but we also knew that the intent was to support the people in the city. by saying in here, deleting the local business category, we are actually going against the intent of the motion.
It
And
says
the
Sterling
important-
business though.
But the
It actually has
importance-
Sterling business in there.
It's
You
still,
can't get any more local than Sterling business.
local business directory, it could be called Kareen or Belga business. It's still the same. It's the city of Stirling. It's not just a Stirling business hub. You know, it's everybody in here.
Yes.
We've got great people that do everything
and it's not.
everywhere.
So that's the intent. The city of Stirling, the area, Stirling business. That's the definition. It's not like it's not part of an association or anything like that.
No, but deleting the business category, the local business category, didn't imply it was Stirling as a suburb. It implied it was the city of Stirling. It's always been the city of Stirling.
Okay.
Whether we're getting it from Belga or Kareen or...
We're in agreement with you. That's what I'm saying. It's called Sterling business. I'll
So
get Ms Hawkins.
deleting the local
Let me get Ms
business-
Hawkins to try to explain.
Yeah, thank you. Through the Mayor. And Councillor, absolutely what the Mayor has said. So we had Stirling business and local business in the policy previously. The local business was the broader one that the Mayor talked about. So if you had a member of staff that lived in Stirling or you used somewhere in Stirling to get your goods. So what we've done through this change to the policy is to make it Stirling business only. So that means that our focus is really on the businesses that are truly in Stirling as opposed to that broader definition of a local business. So as the Mayor has said, this strengthens your original motion, your original requirement to Stirling business.
I don't actually think it does. I think it waters it down because people misinterpret it. If you had City of Stirling, it's different. But actually taking out the local, I think, is the actual problem. But it's your interpretation. This was discussed well before.
I will get
So-
some clarification just from Mr Roddick.
Through you.
There's a definition of it. So let's get the definition.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Reid, there's a clear definition for Sterling business, and I'll read it out. Businesses registered in the City of Stirling and businesses that have premises in any of the City of Stirling suburbs. It's very, very clear. The policy reflects exactly what you're talking about. Exactly.
For you, Mr Mayor, I'm quite aware of the definition because I was part of the people that got it set up. The comments made by you is that people, and by Mrs Hawkins previously, that people who have got companies that can't possibly have a base here should still have some contact. And it was based on the opinion of Mrs Hawkins and her team that whether or not things were accepted. Around the table, we all agreed to leave it up to the staff to decide what was local and what wasn't. Now, I don't think anyone around the table would change that because I know I don't have any qualifications to make that choice other than a ticker box looking at their matrix. So that is still left with them. I still don't see that these needed to be changed. And I'm happy to leave it there.
Thank you. Councillor Dudek.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just following on from that about why we removed the local content weighting. Obviously, it's just been said about how we've what's defined as a Sterling business, and the weighting was sometimes misused by larger companies who just made a business in Sterling. Surely there's a way to get around those loopholes and still have a local content weighting so that's shown clearly to councillors when we are considering tenders. If I can just get some clarification on that first.
Sure. Ms Hawkins.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So in terms of that council do that will be taken account of. I think the changes that came through from the workshop was particularly around that local business definition, as Mr Roddick's talked about, which then you didn't have to be registered, but you could have subcontractors or employees. So certainly that local content will still be considered when we evaluate whether it is a quote or a tender.
So, and I just want to clarify that I think it should be taken into account by councillors, and I'm not sure how we see that information when we're looking at a tender, because we need to have due regard for, the whole tender when we are considering it. I'm just wondering how a councillor will know if something is a Sterling business when it comes in front.
Sure. Ms Hawkins.
Yeah, certainly through the Mayor, and thank you. Yes, we'll certainly include that in the report when a tender comes through to council for approval. So we'll certainly include that so you have that information.
I'm still a bit confused. I think probably the most easy way to define that is to have it as a specific category in our tender weighting, as we've had always, but perhaps just closing those loopholes that we talked about and making sure we are talking about Sterling businesses. And I guess that leads me to my next point. I'm perhaps wanting to move an amendment to this motion. This is slightly based on what Councillor Giudice was discussing last week about a consistent weighting structure for tenders. And I'm not trying to do anything tonight, and I know these things need to be considered, but I'm perhaps going to move an amendment for an extra point number 2, that a consistent weighting structure for all tenders be presented to a future council meeting for consideration, including a Sterling business category. Yeah, City of Sterling business category. But Sterling business as it's defined in the policy would be fine. I'll just get advice from Ms Hawkins so you know where it sits.
Thank you, the Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Dudek. As we've discussed with Councillor Giudice, that's certainly what we intend to do, is to work through that information. There's other changes that we plan to make to the procurement policy, so certainly we'll bring that back.
Okay, cool. I'm happy with that. I still do want to move the amendment. I think it's good to have it noted and perhaps
Sure.
in
So,
writing, so
yeah,
we'll see how
no,
that
no,
goes.
happy. So what I'll do is see if, actually, we'll just do that as a, is there a seconder? Councillor Reid, does that help you? No?
Mr Mayor, do you want the mover and the seconder to agree to the amendment?
Hang on, let me get some advice, because we're just having a look whether this is an amendment or an alternative. So the issue is that the actual recommendation, the council adopts the updated procurement policy, actually removes the weighting, and yours is about putting consistent weighting structure back in. No? So just do it as separate, number 2.
With that dot point 2 is a separate resolution. Yeah, it's a separate resolution. You know, it's not part of.
Okay, so.
Yes. That's what. Yeah, 2.
Yep.
It's not part of 1.
It's not part of
No, you're not going to change it.
Yeah.
But where's the dot point? You need another dot point.
Yeah, but saying it needs to be that the council, so it stands on its own, but the council reviews the policy. That the council does something.
You happy with that, Jackson? So. So while we're going through this, just to make sure it's okay, can I get Councillor Perkoff as the mover? Are you happy to accept that as an amendment? Because we can put them separately either way.
Mr Mayor, I'd rather put them separately. Can we do that, please?
Right, so what I'll do then, Councillor Dudek has moved an amendment. Do we have a seconder for his amendment? Deputy Mayor Migdal is happy to second that. I don't think we need to debate that one. So we're just voting on whether the amendment is accepted. Oh, we got 3 now. Right. Sure.
Look, whilst I support this, I think labelling a consistent structure to all tenders, which are all different, and I understand some core business points, but I think it shouldn't be done tonight. I think that should be brought back as a separate discussion. Yeah, I think we need to set a date for that, discuss it, because some of the fundamentals might be around creativity, and that's not a consistent message that we have.
So I think the intent of that is exactly that a consistent weighting structure for all tenders be presented to a future council meeting, so it would come back. So I'll just.
We've got it now.
Yeah, to a future council meeting. So we're just voting on number 2.
Yep.
So we'll just do it like that. We'll do it because it's been an amendment. So we'll just do it as a vote, and then it just becomes part of the substantive, and then it will all get voted on together. So if you don't want this, don't vote for it now. If you do want it, vote for it now. We're only voting on 2, the amendment. Just voting on number 2. Okay, we've got 2 to go. Okay, that motion is carried, so it becomes part of the substantive motion now. Is there anyone who'd like to debate this item in whole now that's left? If you've already had your go. Anyone else like to debate this item? Otherwise, Councillor Lagan.
A question through you. Does that second part affect the notionality of best value that we look for in our tenders?
Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Lagan. Value for money will always be the requirement as per the regulation, so when we look at that, that will have to be front of mind.
Thanks, councillors. If there's no one else, I'll go to Councillor Perkov if you want to close.
Nothing to add, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. And just noting, so the amendment you've all voted on, it has been carried, but it is for that to come back and be presented to a future meeting. So it's not just, it's going to get done. So I'll now put that whole motion to the vote. Move Councillor Perkov, second to Councillor Giudice. That motion is carried. Noting Councillor Reid has voted against it. Thanks, councillors. 12.1 T1, the tender for Sol expansion. Councillor Perkov as chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the committee recommendation as written on page 91.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hatton. Do I have anyone opposed? Councillor Ferrante. Thank you. We may need a motion to go behind closed doors. Councillor Ferrante moved to go behind closed doors. Councillor Lagan has seconded. Please note for those viewers that
End of the meeting.
back into council. Have moved Councillor Proud, seconded Councillor Thornton. Just a show of hands to open. It's unanimous, so we'll open the doors. We are now back live. Please note to those people who've just returned at home that we have dealt with 12.1 TU1, the tender for solar expansion, and 12.1 8.2 event sponsorship, and they have both been approved. I will now go to the balance of reports. Councillor Perkoff.
Thank you, Mayor. I certainly would like to move the remainder of the balance of reports as written.
Thank you. And Councillor Proud has seconded that. And if we can just go to the vote on the balance of reports, councillors, just electronic. There you go. Thank you. And that is unanimous, noting that the Deputy Mayor is not in the chamber. It's very flighty. All right. Members of the gallery, the remainder of the Community and Resource Committee recommendations have been adopted by exception resolution. We'll now go on to item 13, reports and consideration in accordance with clause 4.24 of the meeting procedures local law. 13.1, the City of Stirling Annual Report 23-24, absolute majority required. Councillor, could I move a motion? Councillor Lagan, seconded Councillor Proud. Is there? Thank you. Yeah, just maybe just read that out.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the amended recommendation that we received today or yesterday.
Yeah, with the slight changes to a couple of the fees and expenses and allowances. That is noted. Is there anyone opposed to this item? I'll probably say something, but you're welcome to if you'd like. But if not, no one opposed, so we'll put it to the vote. That is unanimous again. No. Deputy is just out of the chamber. Thank you, councillors. Yeah, I will just make some quick comments. Look, the City of Stirling Annual Report, whilst there is always a frustration, I'll say it's a continual frustration that the report has to be presented this late due to the reporting regulations and waiting for the regional councils and the Auditor General's office to go through all the local governments and return them. Sometimes it's almost an anticlimax because when you read it, you forget how long ago some of those things were achieved. The annual report, whether every person in the gallery who comes along agrees with us, is a fantastic record of transparency and accountability and has been recognised for a decade now at the Australasian Reporting Awards as such and best in sector. This is in no way not due to the hard work of the CEO and the executive team, leading an incredible group of managers and officers throughout the building who do a mountain of work to sort of background all the information and get it through. And then, of course, to our team from marketing and communications, and obviously our strategy and performance team for putting this document together. I see the hard work and the long nights of the team, especially up on the third floor, as you guys sort of compile this and make sure the accuracy and the way that we cover off on what is quite often an absolute monster. I mentioned elephant earlier on in jest to Councillor Ferrani, but you know it's such a beast of an organisation when you look at the scope of the City of Stirling, and then to see it actually compiled into a report of this magnitude and done so well and done so consistently is an absolute credit to both of you and your teams, and of course to our executive team up here. So I congratulate all of you. It's a document we should all be very proud of, as it documents an incredible year in achievements for the City of Stirling and also outlines some of what the future may hold. Again, I only wish it could come in a more timely fashion after the end of the year through no fault of our own, but it's a document that will obviously be presented to our elected general meeting in the next few weeks, and I certainly commend this document as a fantastic record of the city's achievements. So big congratulations to your teams. Now, take it down a notch to item 14 and go to you, Councillor Lagan, for 14.1, your proposed notice of motion.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just move the recommendation for a report to be presented.
Thank you. And 14.2 for the Deputy Mayor. I'll go to you, Councillor Ferrante?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move the
Sorry.
nom.
No,
Move the nom that's.
I don't.
No, are you talking about notice of motions for next council?
Apologies. I was just reading these out like they were written, so we do need a vote on this one. Bit ahead of myself. So seconder for Councillor Lagans, Councillor Giudice, you're happy to second that? And just a vote. Sorry? Anyone against the report for the cul-de-sac? There. So I will put that to the vote. This is Councillor Lagans. I got ahead of myself. And that is... No, Councillor Ferrante? Okay, guys, a few things happened then. Councillor McDowell just came back into the room as we were about to start. So let's start again. And Councillor Ferrante was cut off. Okay, we've got a couple left. So we've got Councillor Hatton and Nolo, I think, and Perkoff. How are we going? No, we've got an error. Something's not going right. So show of hands, councillors. Keep it simple. That is unanimous. Thank you. Very timely, as now Deputy Mayor is back in the room. 14.2, your proposed notice of motion.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the alt rec on page 109, please.
Thank you. Noted. Councillor Kristovich is happy to second that. Is anyone opposed? No, just a show of hands.
I actually did have a question.
Some votes already happened. You can take it offline.
It'll be too late then.
Is that? That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 15, notice of motion for consideration at the next meeting. All right. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, I do have a nom. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read it off the board, but it'll be up there in just a second. That a report be presented to the May 20th Community and Resources Committee meeting outlining the cost of implementing netting to the T abutting Raymond Street Yokine on the WA Golf Course, along with alternative options.
Thank you.
Shall I read the reason or?
No, I think it was clear in the questioning tonight. I'll just check with Ms Hawkins that it should be enough time, I would think, the May.
Through the Mayor, I would think in terms of coming back with costing, so in terms of this one, obviously the WA Golf Club private club, they're currently looking at the feasibility of the fencing, as I mentioned to Ms Russell. We would have information on what we have recently done at our own golf club, which could possibly give us an idea of costing, but it's certainly something that we need to work with the WA Golf Club on. It's not, obviously not been our course. But sorry.
Mr Mayor, just further to this notice of motion, and the reason why I have asked that this be presented by May 20th is because down Raymond Street there is a footpath, and we did have someone at question time, and the footpath does run along there, and there are heaps of children twice a day who are walking up and down there, and I am concerned for the well-being of residents. So
yeah, no problem. That's, yeah. So your nom's up there. All right, and any other noms? Kristovich? Councillor Kristovich?
Yeah, I think mine...
Probably a little bit informal, apologies.
Mine should be up there, that the city undertakes a review of traffic, pedestrian and road safety issues for the roads surrounding the Karrinyup Shopping Centre, and the findings of the review to be presented to council.
And you just want to add again after that? Is that enough? Anyways, thank you, councillor. Is there any other noms for this evening? All right.
That was a separate one.
Thank you. Item 16 is questions by members of which due notice has been given. I have nil. 17, new business of an urgent nature. I have nil. 18, matters behind closed doors. I do have none. So I'll go to item 19, which is closure of the meeting. Thank you, councillors. I declare the meeting closed at 8:14 p.m. and bid those viewers at home good night.